Hello again and welcome to the Warhammer 40k Imperial Guard Tactics video. Now before we get into today's video, I would like to credit the artist who did this picture that I am using in my video. The artist is HotDog69 or HortDog69 with a W in Hort and Dog. And he's a Reddit user who has a great little series about a little sort of pint-sized Korp of Krieg Grenadier and his big sister of battle, and they get into some absolutely fantastic adventures together. I really love following this guy and his art in this little series, and he did this picture in response to what we saw on Monday with Games Workshop, or appearing to be taking the axe to the Korp of Krieg. And if for any of you that don't, the title of this, I should say, is Mr. GW, I Don't Feel So Good. And it's a reference to, spoiler alert, to the Avengers and Spider-Man and all that kind of stuff. Mr. Stark, I Don't Feel So Good. So, I think it's an absolutely fantastic picture. Now, this is actually, I just want to say, wanted to credit the artist before we got into the video, because if you haven't seen him, go and check it out. Really, really good artwork. If I can remember, I'll put a link down in the description below. And you can see some of the stuff that this guy's done. Now, without further ado, let's get into today's video. So, Games Workshop has put up on their Warhammer community page and Warhammer 40k Facebook page an article giving us some more information about what's going to happen to the Korp of Krieg in the upcoming Imperial Armour Compendium. And I'm just going to get straight into it, guys. So this, just to caveat it, I have actually, this will be the third time that I've attempted to record this video. I keep getting just really salty, and I'm trying to not. So I'm going to show you guys. I don't want to come off as just a whiny bitch who spends 30 minutes just whining about Games Workshop this and that and whatnot. So we're going to keep it on the straight and narrow, and we're gonna look at this from both sides. And I guess how I'd sum this video up is, as one door closes, another door opens. Okay? So, let's just get straight into this. Big news is, guys, it has now been confirmed by Games Workshop the Korp of Krieg are getting rolled into the main Guard Codex. Okay? Korp of Krieg are becoming an additional regiment. Not their own separate, standalone force, but that doesn't play, that's like Guard but plays very differently. They're now becoming one regiment with the other regiments that are in the Ashmatam Codex. So, what are the positives and negatives of this? We've had a few days. We all knew this was coming. After the announcement, I think there were a few holdouts who had some hope. I tried to, thinking that maybe we haven't got the full story now. We have a much clearer idea. We still don't have the full story, but the long story short is Krieg are losing their own. Basically, they're kind of losing their own codex. Codex Krieg doesn't really exist anymore. I mean, I know they were sort of in the Imperial Armour thing, but they don't have their own separate thing. They're now in with us, everyone else in the Guard. So, one door closes. What are the Death Corps now going to miss out on? Your basic guardsmen are not going to have access to weapon skill 3+ anymore. You're no longer going to have access to Grenadier Storm Squads. And you don't have access to your special character anymore. Marshal Karis Venner is going. And the Death Rider Commissar is going, as is the Storm Chimera. Now that's what's been confirmed. If it's very likely that the Centaur carriers are going to go the way of the Dodo as well. So that's what has been confirmed by Games Workshop to be going into Legends, and Legends fade. As what does it say in Lord of the Rings? Legends fade into myth, and myth fades from memory. That's what happens with Legends. It's a graveyard. On the other hand, Games Workshop has given us some updated rules for the combat engineers and the Death Riders. So combat engineers have had a nerf and a buff, so they've stayed roughly the same. So the engineer's shotgun no longer has the carcass shot rule, which was like get hot but really good. But so the engineer shotgun has taken a bit of a nerf. It's assault 3 now though, so I think that might be a bit of a boost. I think it used to only be assault 2. Krieg players out there, correct me down below. But the gas bombs that the combat engineers come with, which arguably were what a lot of people were saying was the main reason to take these lads, the gas bombs have gone from grenade 1 to grenade D6. So a squad of 10 combat engineers will be, on average, if you use the grenadier stratagem on them, will be able to get 35 grenadier gas bomb shots off. And they wound everything that's not a vehicle or a Titanic unit on a 2+, and the AP -2. So really good grenades, actually. You throw a bunch of those things at a bunch of Primaris Marines, they are going to feel it, because the Grenadiers still hit on a 3+. So you'd hit with about 20 odd of them. You're going to wound with the vast majority. You're going to wound with like 17. And then the Marines are only going to be on a 5-up save. So that's good. So that means you should be able to do 10 wounds. So your squad of combat engineers with the Grenadier strat should fairly comfortably be able to do in a squad of Primaris Marines. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. Or it'll do 10 wounds to MEQ, to your Marine equivalent. So you can work that out for the other power armoured factions. So that's very good. So they have, one thing, one hand giveth, one hand taketh away. The Death Riders themselves have had an overall buff. Their hunting lance now remains AP -1 after they've charged, so it's like an Astartes chainsword. And whilst they do charge, it gets the +2 strength, the -3 AP, and the damage too. So that's good. So you get a little bit of, you do want to break people on the charge with Death Riders, but you do also get to, if you don't, you've got this AP -1, which is good. Now, but the big thing for Death Riders is they now get a 5+ feel no pain across the board. Previously it was you get a 5+ feel no pain if you get hit by a strength 4 or less, and now that's not the case. It is just a 5 feel no pain across the board. Now that is good. That is very, very tasty. Death Riders have a 4+ armor save, followed by a 5+ feel no pain. They're toughness 4. They've got 2 wounds each. The points might change, but currently they stand at, I think, about 15 points per model. 15 to 20 points per model. Cheap enough. The point is that they're quite a good drawable unit, and they've only got better now. So that's good. So there's some of the buffs that we can see. Now, we still haven't got full sight of everything yet. We don't yet know if the Death Corps will be keeping their own unique order, or if they'll be getting their own warlord traits and stuff like that. We don't know yet. What we do know is they are getting rolled into, they can use everything from the Guard Codex. Now, does this mean that they will be rolled into the main Guard Codex when that is released? I don't know yet. I don't know yet. I think we're on almost on a knife edge at this point. We could tip one way or another with the faction. Okay, I would say that if the faction gets rolled into the main Guard Codex, and when the new Codex comes out for 9th edition, for 9th edition, and we can see Death Corps Krieg as a regiment choice there, then the Krieg's going to be with us for a long time to come. If we see that they're just in the Forge World Compendium and they don't get rolled into the main Guard Codex, I would start getting concerned. Because that Forge World Compendium, Forge World is on borrowed time, one way or another. And so for Games Workshop to show us that we support the Krieg and they're going to be around for a while, we need to see them being put into the main Guard book. Now, the last bit of positive news that I want to take from this is that, well, not last bit actually. One last thing I want to say is I think that the first option is more likely. I think we're more likely to see the Guard brought into the Corps brought into the main Guard Codex. Why? Because I have it on good authority from some reliable contacts within the Inquisition that there will be a plastic Death Korp of Krieg kit coming, and that they are going to be the new poster boys for the Guard, not the Cadians. They've blown up Cadia. Krieg's still around. and so that's very exciting news. It's only a rumor, guys. I could be totally wrong. We could be looking back in this video in 6 months' time and shaking our heads with just sadness. But I think that it's likely that Krieg are going to become the main boys for the Guard, and they're going to get a plastic kit, and the updated plastic Guardsman kit that we've been wanting for a long time is on its way, which would be amazing. But let's keep our fingers crossed for that. Let's really keep our fingers crossed for that, because Krieg can take sergeants with lasguns, so maybe finally the mythical sergeant lasguns coming back. Anyway, let's not go too far down the rabbit hole. Right, what else can we talk about? That's trying to keep this factual. With Krieg getting rolled into the main codes, we touched on this in the previous video. With Krieg getting made into regular Guardsmen, there are some positives for that. It does mean that the long-term potentially viability of the faction is going to be around, as previously mentioned. It also gives Krieg access to a lot of tactical options they didn't previously have, and there was a lot of confusion with Krieg. I've had people comment on my videos up until the latest one saying Krieg could take everything that regular Guard could take, and then I've had people tell me no, they couldn't. Krieg could only take the units that were specifically mentioned in their list of units they could take in the old Forge World book. So there was a lot of confusion around it. Now we know what you can take. Okay, you're in the main Guard book. You have access to all. There's no doubt anymore. You have access to all the stuff that regular Guard have. All the unit options are there. It's easier for for Krieg players to know, if they're getting new into the faction, what they can take and what they can't take. Because the answer is you can take everything now. There's none of this can you, can't you. No, you can take everything. There's no questions. Okay? So that's a good thing. Getting access to... getting access to things like, I know I've mentioned it already, conscripts does allow you now as a Krieg player to really embrace the World War One aspect of the army. Now, I know that Krieg men are meant to be trained to a particularly high standard, and they come from a particularly brutal background, and so that's why they should have this weapon skill 3+ and so on and so forth. I totally get it, but there's always been this thing with Krieg, and I know a lot of Krieg players are gonna lynch me for saying this, but please hold on and hear what I have to say. There's always been this weird sort of conflicting split personality with the Krieg, where they're meant to be World War One, but their Guardsmen are more elite. They're meant to be wave after wave of infantry, but you rarely see more than 100 of them on the field of battle. It's this weird thing where you want them to be wave after wave of infantry grinding the enemy down, but the way the way the data sheets were, the way the units were laid out, they just didn't quite fit that vibe. And it always really. I know that you could build some Krieg regiments to represent late war World War One, when you had the stormtroopers that would break through, and you had the assault doctrines and all that kind of stuff. I get it, but that's something that people with a fairly in-depth knowledge of World War One would be able to explain. But to most people, when you say World War One, what do you think? You think trench warfare, wave after wave, infantry assaults, mass artillery. That's what you think. And Krieg have always wanted to do that on the tabletop, but have not really been able to do that. Okay, you've not really been able to get that number of bodies on the field. You've always been limited. Well, now you can live that life. Okay, you can do it. You can turn up now with a single battalion with 6 squads of 30 conscripts and just full on World War One the enemy. Just 180 men. Just do it. Okay? And there's always been this strange thing, especially with Krieg in 8th edition. A really good example of this, I've talked about this in previous videos. where you've got this better weapon skill, but the only way you could get +1 attack and stay pure Krieg was to take your command squads, but your command squads would die very easily. So you'd be stuck with this weapon skill 3, but you only had 1 attack, and you were fearless from being shot at, but you wanted to get into combat because of your weapon skill 3+. But if you got into combat, you didn't really have the ability to kill people because you've only got 1 attack, and even a weapon skill 3+ is not that great, and you're only strength 3. You see, there's all these things that were like, they don't quite work. They didn't quite work. It's like, you know, better weapon skill, but more elite guardsmen. Yet you want to be throwing wave upon wave at people, and if you get into combat, your regiment trait starts backfiring. You see what I mean? I hope this is coming across. There was this almost like it didn't quite fit together with the way the Krieg rules were and the way the Fluff was. Well, now, yes, this regiment trait overall is probably worse. Okay. But now, at least, it does help you when you're in combat. So there's no longer this thing of, I don't want to get into combat with my guys. It's like, no, you do. Because even if you get absolutely hammered in combat, with the way the new morale system works, combined with the new Krieg trait, you're actually, you know, those blobs of conscripts are likely to stick around. Okay, they're likely to do really well. You can have your Lord Commissars, giving them leadership 9, and you can, you know, you have these ways of making these Krieg boys work according to their fluff. You know, their or should we say their surface fluff. I know you can go deep and deep and deep and deep and deep into into a regiment's fluff, but now, according to their common image that everyone has of them, they can start playing to that a bit better. Okay, so that's me trying to look at this in a very positive way. Okay, now I know there'll probably be several comments down there already saying, Mordian Glory, how much did they pay you to make this video? Have you taken the bribery? you know, I'm hurting. I don't want logical facts, Mordian Glory. I am hurting. And you know what, guys? I get you. Because I'm hurting too. Because this still doesn't feel right. The way they've done it doesn't feel right. The way that they've released what feels like just the way they've gone about it. The reaction that they've had, and the Warhammer community article feels very tone deaf. Like, a lot of people are angry about the Krieg, the way they've been treated, the way that renegades and heretics have been treated, and Games Workshop just chopping things and then releasing this article that's like, oh, we've chopped your faction and changed it fundamentally, but here's this fucking here's a shit sandwich, but eat up. You know, you should be grateful you're still around. It's like, what? Yeah, I don't know. I think the way they've handled it is extremely poor. Okay, I think what they failed to understand is the Krieg army it's the premium, it's the creme de la creme. Okay, if you're the kind of person that turns up to the field of battle with a Krieg army, people, that draws attention. Okay, you're not just your run-of-the-mill regular guard player. You are a Death Korps Krieg player, okay? And people damn well know you are. It's the street cred. You know, you don't often see the Death Korps of Krieg out there, but when you do and someone turns up with one, you know that that guy is down to play some goddamn 40k. Remember the first time I played a game versus a full-on Death Korps of Krieg army? It was in 8th edition. The guy had a beautiful Death Korps Krieg army, painted in all the traditional colours, and it was amazing. It was a joy to play against. And every single time someone on my channel or on my face page would say has posted pictures of the Death Korps of Krieg, it always gets a really positive response. Some of the most commented on pictures on my Facebook page, and some of the most positive and enjoyed videos have been on my channel have been about the Death Korps of Krieg. Not many people could afford them. Or if they could afford them, or should we say, or even if they couldn't afford them, not many people would go to recasts and things like that to get them. Okay, recasts obviously have played a part in this decision, but that's a video for another time. But the point is that Games Workshop have fundamentally misunderstood the point of the Krieg, which was they are not the same as regular guardsmen, and the people that play them have bought into this almost, you know, I'm not just a guard player, I'm a Krieg player. You know, I don't know another analogy you could give, but it's almost like, you know, I'm not British, I'm English, or I'm not British, I'm Scottish. You know, you're part of the UK, but you're proud of this almost like subculture. You know, I think the Scottish example is a really good one because Scots culture is really that might not be the right term for it. Scottish culture is very strong, and Scottish people, they're proud of being Scottish, and so they should be. It's got, you know, fantastic country, very rich history, and it's almost the same thing with Krieg. Yes, I'm a guard player, but I'm not just a guard player, I'm a Krieg player, and I want you to know that distinction. Okay, it's important to me that distinction is recognised. And I think that's where Games Workshop's gone wrong with this. And I think that's why you can make all the logical arguments you want in the world. You can make all the logical arguments, and I can put forward videos that explain how you're going to be able to be a bit more fluffy into the World War 1 side of things. You've got all these options that are going to be available to you, but it does. Oh, you've got access to first rank fire, second rank fire. Finally, we've got access to first rank fire, second rank fire. A lot of Krieg players are happy about that, but it doesn't matter. You could improve the faction tenfold. You could make them super overpowered. Krieg players wouldn't like that either. Okay, but let's not get into that. You could make the faction overall much better, but if you pull out the heart of the faction, the soul of the faction, it doesn't really matter. And we've spoken about this in the previous video, so I won't go over it too much, but there's a certain kind of 40k player out there. There's the player that wants the most overpowered stuff, or the player that just loves Space Marines. That makes up about 50% of the player base. People that just go with the flow, super casual, don't mind. And then you've got the other 50% of the player base, which is spread out across all the other factions. The ones that do not care how many logical arguments you present to them, they're not interested. They are collecting something because they love it. Okay, and whether it costs them an infinite amount of money or they can do it on the cheap, but what they want to do is be able to pour their heart and soul into that project. So back in, and Korp of Krieg were the quintessential. They were the perfect example of that kind of player. Okay, the perfect example of that kind of player, the one that was in it for the lore, for the fluff, for the regiment, for the premium. That's what they were in it for. And Games Workshop has stripped them out and made them part of another faction, and they don't want to be part of the main guard. Krieg players don't necessarily want to be part of the main guard. They don't want that. They want to be special, they want to be unique. And they should be, because for their regiment, if you've bought a legit regiment from Forge World, you have paid that price. You should be rewarded for it. It should be an elite club in many ways. That's that's what we've been told for 10 years. 10 years Forge World has been releasing the Korp of Krieg models. And so, I think I'm just going to end up repeating myself, but you guys get what I'm trying to say. It's not about the logic here. It's about wanting to be recognised for being that certain kind of player. When that person turns up with the fluffy army, with the narrative army, with the cool army, and Krieg players in the Krieg community exemplified rule of cool. And that's why they're pissed off, because even though they're going to be able to continue using their models, they're not going to be able to continue to use them in the way that they love, and that's the problem. Anyway, guys, we're going to leave it there. I hope you've enjoyed me trying to keep it on the straight and narrow, positive, but with a little bit of real talk at the end. That's how I'm trying to do these videos going forward. Please let me know down in the comment section below if you like it. And of course, the Krieg community out there, now that you've seen this and you've seen the arguments that are on both sides of the fence around Krieg and everything, are you feeling better about it? Are you feeling like this trade-off is worth it? Or do you just wish that this compendium had never been released and you're pinching yourself and you're trying to wake up from the Matrix? Let me know. Put it down in the comment section below. Thank you for listening. And of course, I'll see you guys next time.